The freezing wind howled relentlessly, whipping against the car windows as Celine's voice cut through the frigid air, laced with disdain. "You two have been nothing but a burden since you moved in. Sort out your own mess this time." With a dismissive wave, she rolled up the window, leaving me and my feverish granddaughter, Alara, stranded on the icy curb. I clutched Alara closer, her small frame shivering violently against mine. The hospital loomed in the distance, a mirage of safety amidst the swirling snow. I had no choice but to forge ahead, one painful step at a time. This wasn't how I envisioned my life after Robert's passing. Moving in with my son Denton and his family was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to heal and create precious memories with Alara. But Celine had other plans. From the moment I stepped through their door, her barely concealed contempt seeped into every interaction. Denton, ever the peacekeeper, remained oblivious to the toxic undercurrents brewing beneath his own roof. Alara's once vibrant spirit gradually dimmed, her laughter becoming a rare commodity. I watched helplessly as Celine's sharp tongue chipped away at her confidence, dismissing her as a nuisance whenever Denton wasn't around. "Grandma, I'm so cold," Alara whimpered, her words muffled against my coat. I tightened my grip, determination hardening my resolve. We would make it through this ordeal, and then I would find a way to free us from Celine's suffocating grip. I could no longer stand idly by while my granddaughter's light was extinguished before my eyes. The time had come to gather my strength and confront the shadows that threatened to consume us both. After the harrowing ordeal of reaching the hospital, Alara and I were admitted for treatment. As the doctor tended to us, I couldn't shake the nagging worry that had taken root. Alara's dull eyes and listless demeanor hinted at a deeper malaise than mere illness. Once we were settled in our room, I gently broached the subject. "Sweetheart, is everything okay at home? You know you can tell Grandma anything." Alara hesitated, her small fingers fiddling with the hospital blanket. "Mom gets really mad sometimes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "When Dad's not home, she yells a lot and calls me names." My heart clenched at her words, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Celine's contempt extended far beyond me. Her own daughter was a target of her cruelty. "Does she ever hurt you?" I asked, dreading the answer. Alara shook her head quickly. "No, she just gets really angry and says mean things." Relief washed over me, but the revelation left a bitter taste. How could a mother treat her child with such disdain? As the days passed, Alara's trust in me grew, and she began sharing more disturbing details. Celine's neglect knew no bounds, forgetting meals, leaving Alara alone for hours, and lashing out over the most trivial mishaps. With each new disclosure, my resolve hardened. I couldn't allow this toxic environment to continue poisoning my precious granddaughter's spirit. But confronting Celine directly would only invite manipulation and denials. I needed concrete evidence to expose her true nature to Denton. From that moment on, I became a silent observer, carefully documenting every incident, every cruel remark, and every act of negligence. My notebook became a damning record of Celine's transgressions, a weapon to wield against her facade of perfection. As we recovered in the hospital, I found solace in plotting our escape from Celine's tyranny. No longer would we cower in the shadows, fearing her wrath. It was time to bring her reign of terror to an end, no matter the cost. Back home after our hospital stay, I vowed to keep a closer eye on Celine's behavior. It didn't take long for her true colors to rear their ugly head once more. One afternoon, Alara accidentally spilled her juice while coloring at the kitchen table. A harmless mistake, one any child could make. But to Celine, it was an unforgivable offense. "You clumsy brat," she snarled, snatching the empty cup from Alara's trembling hands. "Look at the mess you've made. Can't you do anything right?" Alara shrank back, her eyes welling with tears. "I'm sorry, Mommy. It was an accident." Celine's lips curled in a sneer. "Sorry doesn't clean up your messes, does it? Useless, just like your good-for-nothing grandma." My blood boiled at her scathing words, but I forced myself to remain calm. Confronting her directly would only provoke more venom. As Celine stormed off, muttering insults under her breath, I pulled Alara into a tight embrace. "Don't listen to her, sweetie. You did nothing wrong." Alara clung to me, her small frame shaking with quiet sobs. It tore me apart to see her light dimming further with each verbal assault. From that day on, I became Celine's silent shadow, discreetly documenting her every outburst and cruelty. My notebook filled with damning accounts of her neglect and emotional abuse, building an airtight case against her. Meanwhile, I shielded Alara as best I could, offering comfort and reassurance whenever Celine's wrath struck. Our bond grew stronger with each shared confidence, a fortress against the storm raging around us. Celine, oblivious to my clandestine efforts, continued her reign of terror unchecked. But with each passing day, my determination solidified. I would not allow this venomous woman to break my granddaughter's spirit any longer. The perfect opportunity arose when Denton announced a business trip, leaving us alone with Celine for a week. I steeled myself, ready to unleash the full force of my ammunition. As Denton's car disappeared down the driveway, Celine turned to us with a sinister smile. "Looks like it's just us girls for a while. You two had better be on your best behavior." I met her gaze unflinchingly, my notebook tucked securely under my arm. The time for reckoning had arrived. With Denton away, Celine descended into a frenzy of cruelty, unleashing her wrath on Alara and me without restraint. Gone were the pretenses of civility. Her true, vile nature was on full display. "Look at this pigsty," she snarled, sweeping her arm across the living room. A few toys lay scattered, evidence of Alara's innocent playtime. "Clean up this mess immediately, you worthless brats!" Alara scrambled to gather her belongings, her small hands trembling. I clenched my fists, biting back the torrent of anger threatening to spill forth. As the week dragged on, each day brought fresh torment. Celine delighted in berating Alara over the slightest infractions, her insults growing increasingly vicious. "You're nothing but a burden, a mistake I wish I'd never made," she hissed, towering over Alara's cowering form. I couldn't bear to witness the light in my granddaughter's eyes dimming further. Enough was enough. I would no longer stand idly by. That night, as Celine retired to her room, I gathered Alara close. "Sweetheart, I need you to be brave for me," I whispered. "Tell me everything that's been happening when your dad is away. Don't leave out a single detail." With tears streaming down her cheeks, Alara poured out the heartbreaking truth. The neglect, the name-calling, the constant belittling. Each word was a dagger to my heart, but I diligently recorded every painful revelation in my notebook. By the end of her testimony, my hands were trembling with rage. How could a mother inflict such cruelty upon her own child? As the week drew to a close, I found myself at a crossroads. Part of me yearned to confront Celine head-on, to unleash the full force of my righteous fury. But a small, cautious voice warned against such rash action. Without Denton's support, any confrontation would be futile, leaving Alara and me vulnerable to further retaliation. No, I needed to bide my time, to wait for the perfect moment to shatter Celine's facade and expose her true, monstrous nature. Only then could we find the freedom and peace we so desperately craved. With a heavy heart, I tucked my damning evidence away, forcing a mask of calm over my seething rage. Celine would pay for her sins, but not until I had Denton as an ally in our fight. For now I would endure, shielding Alara as best I could until the time for reckoning arrived. The day of the storm dawned ominously, the leaden skies foreshadowing the tempest to come. As the winds howled and the snow swirled relentlessly, Alara and I fell ill, our bodies racked with fever and chills. In our weakened state, we were mere burdens in Celine's eyes. "You two are more trouble than you're worth," she spat, glaring at us with undisguised contempt. "I'm not wasting my time dragging your sorry selves to the hospital." I mustered what little strength I had, pleading with her. "Alara is just a child, Celine. She needs medical care." Her lips twisted into a cruel sneer. "Then I suggest you figure it out, old woman. I've got better things to do than cater to your pathetic whims." With those venomous words, she turned and stalked away, leaving us to fend for ourselves against the raging storm. Desperation clawed at me as I gathered Alara into my arms, her small form burning with fever. We had no choice but to brave the treacherous conditions, no matter the cost. Each step was an agonizing battle, the wind and snow conspiring to impede our progress. Alara whimpered softly, her grip on me growing weaker with every grueling minute that passed. By the time we finally stumbled through the hospital doors, we were both on the verge of collapse. Nurses rushed to our aid, whisking us away for urgent treatment. As I lay in the sterile hospital bed, my thoughts churned with a potent mixture of fear and fury. Celine's callous actions had nearly cost us our lives, all because of her twisted need to assert dominance and control. In that moment, any lingering doubts evaporated. I could no longer sit idly by, allowing her toxicity to poison our lives. It was time to take a stand, to break free from her tyrannical grip once and for all. With grim determination, I retrieved my notebook from my bag, flipping through the damning pages. Every cruel word, every act of neglect, meticulously documented and ready to be unleashed. Celine's reign of terror would end, even if I had to burn her twisted world to the ground. I would not rest until Alara and I were free from her insidious clutches, free to breathe the sweet air of liberation. As I clutched the notebook to my chest, a newfound resolve coursed through my veins. The battle lines were drawn, and I would emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The hospital became our sanctuary, a reprieve from Celine's poisonous grip. As Alara and I slowly regained our strength, I knew this temporary peace wouldn't last. It was time to strike back and reclaim our lives. Seizing a rare moment alone, I dialed Denton's number with trembling fingers. He answered on the third ring, his voice laced with concern. "Mom, is everything okay?" I took a steadying breath, steeling my resolve. "No, Denton, everything is not okay. We need to talk, in person, as soon as you return." A pause, then. "What's going on? Has Celine done something?" The dam of pent-up frustration burst open. "That woman you call a wife is a monster, Denton. She's been emotionally abusing Alara and me for months, and this latest incident nearly cost us our lives." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Mom, those are heavy accusations. Celine can be difficult at times, but surely you're exaggerating." "I'm not exaggerating anything," I snapped. "I have documented proof of her cruelty, her neglect, her vicious behavior. Open your eyes, son, before it's too late." An uneasy silence stretched between us, punctuated by Denton's ragged breaths. Finally he spoke, his voice strained. "All right, Mom, I'll be home in 2 days. We'll discuss this then." As I ended the call, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The wheels were in motion. Soon, Celine's twisted web of lies would unravel, and the truth would be laid bare. Over the next 2 days, I pored over my notebook, reviewing each damning entry with a critical eye. Every detail had to be razor-sharp, leaving no room for doubt or manipulation. I also took the time to bolster Alara's courage, reminding her of the importance of speaking up and telling her father the unvarnished truth. No more fear, no more hiding. It was time to confront the shadows head-on. When Denton finally arrived at the hospital, his face was drawn and haggard. I wasted no time with pleasantries, thrusting my notebook into his hands. "Read it," I commanded. "Every page, every word. Then we'll talk." As he pored over the meticulously detailed accounts, his expression morphed from skepticism to horror. Alara's soft voice filled the tense silence, recounting the torment she had endured at her mother's hands. By the time she finished, Denton's eyes were filled with unshed tears. He raised a trembling hand, silencing my impending tirade. "Enough," he rasped. "I've heard enough. How could I have been so blind?" In that moment, I knew we had won. Celine's twisted facade had finally shattered, leaving her naked and exposed before the harsh light of truth. As Denton pulled us into a fierce embrace, I allowed myself a small, grim smile. The battle had been arduous, but we had emerged victorious. Celine's reign of terror was over, and a new dawn beckoned on the horizon. The air was thick with tension as Denton confronted Celine, my damning notebook clutched in his white-knuckled grip. Alara and I watched from the sidelines, a united front against the storm about to be unleashed. "How could you, Celine?" Denton's voice was laced with barely contained fury. "My own daughter, my own mother. How could you treat them with such cruelty?" Celine's eyes widened in mock innocence, her lips curving in sickly sweet smile. "Darling, whatever are you talking about? Those two are nothing but a pair of hysterical liars trying to turn you against me." I felt Alara tense beside me, no doubt bracing for another onslaught of venom from her mother's forked tongue. But Denton was having none of it. "Save it," he spat, thrusting the notebook towards her. "I've seen the proof with my own eyes. The names you called her, the neglect, the emotional abuse, it's all documented here in excruciating detail." Celine's saccharine mask slipped, her features twisting into an ugly sneer. So the old hag has been keeping a little diary, has she? How quaint. This is no joke, Celine. Denton's voice was low, dangerous. I want the truth and I want it now. Why? Why would you treat your own family with such contempt? For a moment, Celine's eyes darted towards us, a flicker of unease crossing her face. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. Because they're nothing but a pair of worthless burdens dragging me down, she hissed. That sniveling brat of yours is a constant annoyance, and your mother is a meddlesome relic who should have been left to rot in a nursing home. The venom in her words took my breath away, but Alara surprised us all by stepping forward, her small frame trembling with a newfound courage. You're wrong, Mommy, she said, her voice ringing with clarity. Grandma is the only one who ever really loved me. You're just a mean, horrible person. Celine recoiled as if struck, her eyes blazing with fury. For a moment, I feared she might lash out physically, but Denton was there in an instant, placing himself between her and Alara like a shield. That's enough, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. I've seen all I need to see. We're done, Celine. Pack your things and get out of my house. As Celine sputtered and raged, hurling every vile insult in her arsenal, Denton simply turned his back on her, gathering Alara into his arms. I followed suit, wrapping my arms around them both in a protective embrace. The battle was won, the monster slain. As Celine's shrill threats faded into the distance, a profound sense of peace washed over me. The shadows had been banished, and a new chapter was about to begin. In the aftermath of Celine's explosive departure, a palpable sense of relief settled over our household. The shadows that had once loomed so oppressively were banished, replaced by the warm glow of newfound freedom. As Denton finalized the divorce proceedings, Alara and I began the process of healing, shedding the emotional scars inflicted by Celine's reign of terror. With each passing day, I watched my granddaughter's spirit regain its vibrancy, her laughter echoing through the halls once more. Gone were the timid glances and hushed tones, replaced by the unbridled joy of a child finally allowed to be herself. Denton, too, seemed renewed, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. I was so blind, he confided in me one evening as we sat on the porch, basking in the warm summer breeze, so caught up in trying to maintain the perfect family that I ignored the cracks in the foundation. I reached over, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. What matters now is that we've found our way back to each other. Alara is thriving, and we can finally move forward as a family, free from Celine's poisonous influence. Denton nodded, his eyes shining with a mixture of gratitude and resolve. None of this would have been possible without your strength, Mom. You were the one who refused to let that woman break us. A lump formed in my throat as I thought back to the darkest days, when Celine's cruelty seemed inescapable. But in the end, love and perseverance had prevailed, forging us into an unbreakable unit. Over the following months, we settled into a new normal, a life defined not by fear or manipulation, but by genuine love and support. Denton poured his energy into his work and being the best father he could be, while Alara and I rekindled our bond, sharing secrets and laughter like co-conspirators. As I watched them play in the backyard one sun-dappled afternoon, my heart swelled with contentment. This was the life I had always envisioned, a warm, nurturing haven where my family could thrive. In that moment, I silently thanked the universe for granting me the courage to stand firm against the shadows that had once threatened to consume us. It had been a harrowing journey, but we had emerged victorious, our love and resilience shining like a beacon in the darkness. As Alara's joyful giggles floated on the gentle breeze, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, fortified by the unbreakable bonds of family. The shadows were gone, banished forever, and a new dawn had finally arrived. Dawn had finally arrived. Dawn had finally arrived.